President Obama says yes to offshore drilling. Say what? Say, well, he says no to offshore drilling in environmentally sensitive areas. There are some that aren't. And this is raising a few eyebrows. It also may be a political master stroke. Time will tell. But in the larger frame, it brings up this whole issue of denying climate change and all this kind of. Two studies now out. This one reported by the BBC, the other in the New York Times. UK. This is from the New York Times. UK panel calls climate data valid. Lawmakers emphasize that nothing in the more than 1,000 stolen email messages, this is the so-called ClimateGate, or the ensuing controversy challenged the scientific consensus that global warming is happening and that it is induced by human activity. And the first of several British investigations into the emails has largely vindicated the scientists involved. But you wouldn't know it if you listened to the Mercatus Center, the Americans for Prosperity, Institute for Humane Studies, the Heritage Foundation, Cato Institute, Manhattan Institute, Washington Legal Foundation, Federalist Society, Foundation for Research on Economics, Pacific Research Institute, Tax Foundation, Independent Women's Forum, Texas Public Policy Forum, American Council for Capital Formation, George C. Marshall Institute, Reason Foundation, Fraser Institute, Institute for Energy Research, Frontiers of Freedom, National Center for Policy Analysis, American Council on Science and Health, Atlas Economic Research Foundation, Capital Research Center, American Enterprise Institute, Independent Institute, American Legislative Exchange Council, Goldwater Institute, Property and Environment Research Center, Mackinac Center for Public Policy, Center for Study of Carbon Dioxide and Global Change, Americans for Tax Reform, State Policy Network, Media Research Center, John Locke Foundation, National Taxpayers Union Foundation, etc., because it turns out that Koch Industries and the various foundations run by the two brothers who by and large run Koch Industries, two of the wealthiest billionaires in the United States, that Koch Industries and their leaders have funneled $24,888,282 to these groups. William Yeatman on the line with us from the Competitive Enterprise Institute, CEI.org, the website on energy policy analysis. CEI, of course, receiving funding from the Charles G. Koch, it's by the way spelled K-O-C-H, Charitable Foundation, the Claude R. Lamb Charitable Foundation, and the David H. Koch Charitable Foundation. William, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. Might I note that, well, while we do indeed take funding from Koch Industries or Koch, I'm not precisely sure which of the aforementioned groups associated with Koch Industries.
Yeah, you're getting it from one of their foundations.
One of their foundations. Well, so does,
two of them, actually,
that matter, Nova on public broadcast television.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can both agree that we both probably respect their the fact that probably their editorial decisions, what they decide to show on public broadcast television, PBS, is probably uninfluenced by the Koch model.
I disagree strongly.
Just as groups such as myself, free market groups, libertarian groups, or I can't speak for actually any other group, but I can speak for my group, that our free market principles are in no way compromised by taking money from whatever group, for whatever reason,
right,
decides to align themselves with our principles. So, I mean, if you impugn...
Well, let me be on the record.
You also have to impugn, I guess, Sesame Street and the editorial content of Nova and these other programs that also rely upon that particular funding.
Well, I have some problems with them. You know, public broadcasting, NPR back 15 years ago or so, did the breaking story, maybe it was almost 20 years ago now, broke the story that Archer's Daniel Midland was price fixing. It led to a $300,000 or $300 million, I recall, fine, the largest in history for price fixing. ADM, major crime. Now ADM is a funder of public broadcasting, and guess what? Public broadcasting no longer does investigative journalism. So I don't think you can decouple these, William Yeatman.
Is that a function? I mean, are you actually accusing public broadcast television of abandoning their investigative journalism, of making an editorial decision predicated upon the funding they now receive from Archer Daniels Midland? Because it's a big accusation, and if that is indeed what you are implying, then perhaps I guess we do see it differently. I mean, Apple's
yes, that is exactly what I'm implying. I'm also saying that the reason why, when you were watching CNN in the run-up to the Iraq War, that the big oil companies and that the big defense contractors were running ads for $20 million jets and $150 million oil platforms was not because they expected you or me to pick up the phone and say, you know, I'll buy one of those drilling platforms. Gee, never thought about it, but I could sure use a $25 million jet. No, it's because they wanted that network to know that they were handing them millions or tens of millions of dollars in advertising revenue, and that if the coverage didn't go right, the money could go away. And
that's quite a conspiracy. I mean, that sounds like the sort of accusation bandied about for climate, I guess, so-called deniers.
Having worked in the advertising industry myself,
theory that seems to implicate kind of the whole media industrial complex as being in cahoots, even PBS, even Sesame Street.
Yep.
I guess I just.
I'm right there, William. I have run two ad agencies for over a decade and a half. I have done training and consulting work with some of the largest ad agencies in this country and some of the largest corporations, and I can tell you from personal experience that when there's big bucks involved, behavior will change. And so the question in my mind is, have all Americans or just the guys in the think tanks become the useful idiots for Koch Industries? Because when climate denial happens, Koch Industries profits go up.
Well, I mean, golly, again, I guess the proof is in the pudding. And what you'll see if you actually look at, I guess, financial records and whatnot, is that our principals have spurned funders in the past, such as ExxonMobil. Our principal take on the fact that their tax breaks, I mean, not just these green industries that get all these taxpayer subsidies, but also oil and gas companies. They don't deserve them either. Let the market decide. Now, because of that principal decision, Exxon revoked our funding. Now that's the kind of, I guess.
But you got money from SCAFE,
real world example. Oh yeah, and again,
the Bradley Foundation, and the Templeton Foundation,
if we were so
Oland,
concerned about what our funders think about our message, then wouldn't evidence indicate? Wouldn't that Exxon example that I just used, that wouldn't exist, right?
No, not if you've got 5 other right-wing foundations who are willing to step into the fray.
So it's all,
William, I am not
this one, knowing that this one is going to fund us because there's this ever-present source of funding. I mean, it just doesn't work that way.
Actually, it seems to, but I'm not suggesting that you are saying what you're saying and doing what you're saying because you're getting money from these guys. I'm suggesting it works the other way around. That because you're out there taking these positions, there is a ready stream of people ready to fund you. If I have
because we take free market principled decisions. Well, of course, that's the way nonprofits work. They rely upon funding. When people find that their interest coincides with our principles, then indeed they're more
then they fund you. And the question is, how much damage is done to the United States of America and to the world by your principles and their funding when you're wrong?
I would argue that a great deal of good has been done. Our primary principle is that of wealth creation, is that of unfettered markets making the best decision.
And how are you going to create wealth when the American species, the human species is at risk?
So much, wait, pardon me? When the human species is at risk.
Exactly. How much money is enough money to save us from an environment that is melting down?
Of the sort you leveled earlier. Look, the human species is not at risk. That is absurd at face value.
Oh, come on. You've got 1 billion people right now infected with tuberculosis. You've got half the human population living on less than $2 a day. You've got parts of an island just vanished off the coast of India. There are entire ecosystems that are in decline and destruction.
The first 2 issues you bring up, that of poverty. That's why I joined the Peace Corps. That's why I'm a proud return volunteer. That's why I care about wealth creation. That's why I care about free markets. So you're right on.
Free markets are raping this planet, including the United States. Well, okay, you don't have time to respond. I'm not gonna throw it at you. William Yateman, CEI.org. You can read all about it there. William, thank you for coming on.